I can never tell.
What? I'm ready.
Welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. May 17th, 2022. Pennsylvania primaries. Some surprise expectations after the most recent polls came out. We're going to talk about that on voting day. Local gas prices are not alone in their record-setting prices. A couple of stories, not only local, but nationally and worldwide. And should college athletes like Penn State football players get half the revenue? There is a bill coming out of one state in the country that could change everything. It's going to be very, very interesting. We'll debate that as well. Before we get to all of those topics, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Well, I am good. The question of today is, how are you feeling?
I feel good. Why is that the question?
Because like May 17th is kind of a big deal because it's like election primary day. Okay. But May 16th is a bigger deal. And why is that a bigger deal? Other than the fact that we didn't do a show yesterday because you didn't show up.
I get a day older. Is that what you're implying?
It is. Yesterday was Jeff's birthday. I was all ready. We were ready to celebrate. We were ready to have, and then he didn't show up, and he's like, "I'm not coming." So here's my question. I have these hidden. So you haven't seen them. So there we go. We've got chocolate on chocolate. We got vanilla on vanilla. Which one would you prefer?
I'm a chocolate guy. Personally.
All right. Well, there we go.
Wait, you're not really. First of all, how did you even do this without me noticing it? Is a better question.
Well, what's funny is, here we go.
Wait, you're not gonna
happy. I'm not gonna light mine. I'm eating the other one. Okay. I thought about it, because they were out in the fridge, and I was like, why didn't I bring them in and stick one in the drawer? And then,
but when
you were working,
when did you even do this?
Like 3 minutes ago.
All right.
Don't go out. All right. So
aren't you supposed to cuff it? Aren't you supposed to put the
hammer
on
and walking
cuff
that
it?
fast, and we're in a closed room, and there should be no breeze.
So
there you go.
This is
there
good.
You go. Should I sing?
No, don't sing. But let's do this.
Well, hold on, we're not done yet.
Because I will
blow that out and don't let it.
I want your opinion on some stuff. What do you got?
I got a present for you.
And you have a present. My goodness, we are crushing it today. This is too much.
I'm ready.
This is all over the top. Am I allowed to open this?
You have to open it.
Am I allowed to open this on in?
Yeah.
What do we got here? What is this? Wow, a Cali Red with Snoop Dogg. That is impressive. That is beautiful. I wish I could set it so that you could see it for the rest of the show.
What's funny is when I brought it back, the first question Carrie asked was, does he drink Cali Red? And I said, Snoop Dogg's on the front. Who cares?
Of course he drinks Cali Red. We'll put it right there for now. My birthday is interesting. You and I have talked about this before. My birthday is interesting. I'm setting this on paper. I don't know if that's the brightest idea. My birthday is interesting.
Didn't you blow out the candle yet?
No, I'm enjoying it.
It's going to melt all over your icing.
You think so? I don't think it works that way. My birthday is interesting. For those who don't know, I share my birthday with my mother, which is, unique. I don't know how many people actually get to share their birthday with a parent. She was a twin. So I also shared it with my uncle as well. My uncle had 2 boys. They're both my cousins. Very fortunate to be close with both of them. My birthday as I get older, and I'm sure this is the same for everybody, my birthday as I get older is conflicting. And I think for most people, that's because
I thought you were going to say the number gets bigger.
Well, yes, but I think that's why it's conflicting.
That's how it works.
Yeah, that's why it's conflicting, though, is because you get older and people are trying to figure out how you mentally handle that. My birthday recently, sharing it with my mother and my uncle. My uncle recently passed away from cancer. My mother is battling cancer right now. So my birthday, as the years have gone by, not only dealing with getting older and the age and conflicting stuff like that, but there has always been this kind of somber side to my birthday. And it's not a complaint. It's not anything. It's just something that you don't really get to say out loud very often. So my birthday has become for someone who is very laid back and kind of happy-go-lucky for the most part. My birthday has become this day in my life that does have a little bit of confliction with it.
As you mentioned that, my birthday, I had obviously 2 grandmothers, as most people do.
Okay.
And I was the one was way active in our lives. Like went to every Little League game, went to other.
Okay.
And the other one was not nearly as active. She was older.
Okay.
More how, and they both lived in Williamsport, so they were both local. But kind of like as I got older, I could drive. I would go visit, the other grandmother. And
Okay.
as time went on, I was closest to that grandmother than everyone else in the family because I was the one that went out of my way to
go
see her.
Yeah.
She died on my birthday.
Okay.
So that was always kind of
Yep.
It's like that weird, if you want to make a connection there.
Yeah.
Because if she was going to die on anyone's birthday, it was mine, but there is always that oh yeah, my grandmother died on my birthday.
Yeah.
So that kind of is weird.
Yeah.
But no, and as you were saying, as you get older, there's that switch in life, and I don't know when it happens, but it happens on Christmas, really, where it goes more from what am I getting people than what am I getting.
Yes.
So and it just kind of happens, and I don't know if that's one of the first signs of adulthood, but you're way more excited to see somebody open what you got them than you are to open what they got you.
Yes.
So yes, and with birthdays, yeah, I get it. I'm way more jazzed about my kids' birthdays than I am about my own birthday.
Yeah, no, certainly. This was the other weird part about it too, is it was a Monday, which Monday birthdays always tend to just be not that your birthday has to be a party every time you have it, but Monday is certainly the most awkward of birthdays, without a doubt. You don't think so?
Well, it makes Saturday night able to go forever.
I think the Monday birthday is weird. Now, I was doing the math though. My 40th birthday, if I make it, I believe my 40th falls on Saturday, which is pretty great. So that's something to look forward to. You don't think so? You don't think that's a good thing?
Let me think.
You don't think it's a good thing for that kind of mile marker to end up on a weekend? No?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking for you for Monday.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the world, Monday they have to go back to work.
Yeah.
So for the convenience of, that's right. You're probably right with that.
Pretty good.
I'll give you Saturday.
So I'm excited about that.
By the way, I don't know if you've bitten into the cupcake. The vanilla on vanilla didn't suck.
I bet you the chocolate's good. Here's the problem. You did that. I'm actually impressed at how gracefully you did that, because I will have chocolate everywhere.
We had them yesterday. They were in the fridge.
Okay.
So the icing it's hard and cold.
So it'll be easier today.
Yeah, it's not going to look like shaving cream when you're done. It's more manageable.
I did get asked if I felt. It's funny because I think I told this to you. After 30, none of these birthdays have had a mental effect on me as far as getting old.
You're 34 now, right?
35.
Oh, you can run for president now.
I can, but because someone said 35, do you feel 35? But I don't. I feel 35 feels the same as 31 did. I haven't noticed.
Except you can put your hat in the ring.
It's not happening. I can tell you. Speaking of putting hats in the ring.
But you could.
Are
we going there right?
We can go. Yeah, we can go right there. Speaking of putting hats
I did not do that on purpose, by the way.
No, that worked.
I do want to mention this before we go any further.
Okay.
And I told you, we talked about this before we got on the air.
Yeah.
I was at the Backyard Brawl, which is local baseball tournament, Montoursville South, Montoursville, Williamsport South, Williamsport, and Loyal Sock. And of course, the good guys won because that's all is right with the world. But I was talking to someone who I've known for a long time, just not like friend, but I've known him forever. Mm-hmm. And told me he loves the show, and I was shocked because I was just and I turned to him and said, "You're the one." So today I'm voting, and one of the ladies at the place where I vote said, "So what are you guys talking about today?" And I said, "We'll figure it out at noon." So there are actually people other than us two,
yes,
who listen.
I know this. You seem to still not know this.
I'm surprised. When he said it to me, I was surprised.
Yeah, you're surprised already. I'm always surprised at how many people listen to it later in the day. I mean, it makes sense though. I mean, people
depending on what your job is. Yeah.
Yes. But I'm always shocked at how many people I will hear from them later at night. Just put on the show, da 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 da, and that part always amazes me.
I do get those.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the ones too where, because sometimes we get a little long-winded.
Sure.
And I realize people don't have an hour and a half out of their day to just listen to us babble. And so I will text people hey, you should probably listen today because it was, and then they're like, "Oh, I'll check it out." And then they text me back after the segment. Okay. But I've also got this. Please tell me you guys aren't going to talk about this for the next 40 minutes. I'll get that too.
Absolutely.
At 6 o'clock at night or at 8 o'clock at night or at 10, whatever. So,
yeah.
So anyway, yes. So I did want to mention that.
Okay. Let's go to Pennsylvania primaries today. Did you vote?
I did.
You
I
did
told
vote.
you. The lady asked me what we were
That's
talking
right.
about.
You're just in your story. It looks like right now, this is from the most recent polling. Doug Mastriano and Kathy Barnett both look poised to win in the most recent polls. We are not reporting that they are going to win. This is all just kind of speculation based off the most recent reports before voting started.
Right.
The Mastriano, I don't know how much you've gotten into these two because you don't really.
I
get to vote.
know.
You don't
I
get to
know
decide
this story because I watched their debate.
Okay.
The Oz.
Oh, okay.
And
Yep,
it was
yep, yep.
really the Oz, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name, Dave
McCormick.
Yes. I got the first name.
So
that's all you need. If you go in the ballot and you only know one of them, like how many Daves could have been running? But so I wanted to watch how those two did.
Yeah.
So that's when I first became introduced to Kathy Barnett.
So here, this is the 30-second version of this. I think most of the state was under the idea that it was Oz and McCormick. That's what it was going to come down to. Both of them, I don't want to put an exact dollar amount on this. However, both of them, I think it's fair to say, have spent tens of millions of dollars.
Lots of money.
On advertising leading up to this. Just before, at the end of this weekend, polling came out that showed Barnett actually was like in a three-way tie. And one of the last ones that they did, Barnett actually won, which was the first poll that she actually came out on top. So in hindsight, looking back through this, what a couple of people are talking about is McCormick and Oz spent a ton of money on campaigning against one another. So essentially, if you flipped on the TV in the last 3 weeks, all you saw was Oz is an awful person. McCormick is an awful person.
Unfortunately, you saw him like right back to back during the local news. If you watch local news, it was like this guy sucks, back to our regular show.
Over and over and over again. And what they're essentially saying what happened is that people kept seeing all these negative ads towards both and started looking at other candidates.
Said I can't vote for either of them.
Can't vote for either of them. They're both awful people. And essentially Kathy Barnett was next in line. Kathy Barnett, up to that point, had only spent $150,000.
Let's be honest.
Compared, go ahead.
We've spent $150,000 on your campaign, and you just said you haven't even entered.
No, I haven't even entered yet. That's what all this show is just my throwing my eventual hat into the ring.
There you go.
So $150,000 from Kathy Barnett. Apparently, her people, her team saw what was happening in the polling.
She was trending,
and essentially said, like, if we throw money at this, there's a real shot here. I believe it was just over $2 million was put in trying to put in positive ad campaigns for her. So essentially what you're seeing is negative McCormick, negative Oz, positive Barnett, without them really going after anybody. And sure enough, the polling at the end of the weekend was coming up roses for her. So we're not saying that Kathy Barnett is going to win, but it's a fascinating subplot that she could end up with the endorsement after all of this is said and done.
Well, here are the things that I find fascinating out of it. Number one, well, I don't even know. These are in no particular order. As you know, as you just said, the other two beat each other up so much.
Yes.
And that it looked like a two horse race. We talked about when they were going to debate, when they were going to have their first televised debate. I think they'd had other debates, but I don't think they were televised. And we talked about it on the show going in. And when I looked at the numbers, there was like 18%, 19%. I think she was at 10 or 9% or whatever, but it seemed like a gap. But one of the things that was mentioned is like 30-some% of the people still consider themselves undecided.
Right.
So they're like, this gap isn't something because they're voting for someone.
It's not insurmountable.
Yes. So these numbers, like all these people are still in play. That's one thing. Another thing is, that we've got to this point in our political, in the political landscape where we are, even nationally, that like when Kamala was touted as the running mate for Biden, it seemed pretty clear to everyone that they are specifically going to pick a minority woman, and they were looking for the best minority woman, because that's one of the other aspects. People like, shouldn't they just pick the best person? And they were picked. So now, and that's on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, they have a black female who is making great strides, like totally organically,
Mhm.
not in an aspect that was, there's no agenda behind it. There's no group that's pushing this because they have a greater philosophy
Essentially, the
behind it.
larger endorsements are with the other candidates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, if you would have said, who can win in Pennsylvania's Republican primary, a black female, unless it would have been Candace Owens, a black female would have, or Condoleezza Rice,
Mhm.
this would have had no shot. If you'd have said to someone, even 2 months ago, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm naive because I didn't know who this person was 3 months ago.
Mhm.
But it's McCormick and Oz. This is how much they're spending. This is how much they're spending.
Right.
There's going to be a wild card who makes a late push. You would have never guessed black female. And that, to me, just makes it all the more fascinating. And I don't know, it just kind of gives a belief in the system again that she overcame the odds, she overcame the money, she overcame everything.
Yeah.
And here she is.
It's such an interesting take on it because there's so many angles of looking at it. Like, there's a lot of people looking at it from the GOP side of things. There's people looking at it from the financial side of things. Like, how does she come back? I never would have looked at it as like the resolve of the system, like as like a feel good story of like the system kind of working.
It seems
itself.
to be. And
yeah,
at least,
that's an interesting take.
even
on
if
it.
she loses, because this is one of the other things. If you could talk to her in private, off the record,
Mhm.
there is this, she's going to say, I believed all along. There's, really? Like when she knew what her budget was, and once she heard Oz is going to spend it, maybe she
Right.
thought because Oz was a wild card and you know, whatever. But there's an aspect where somewhere in the back of their mind, they just wanted to do well enough to
Mhm.
make a good enough showing that they could get a job somewhere, that they could get appointed. And that if she did well and she made a respectable showing as a black female, does she have national implications with, because right now the way the world is going, the Republicans look like they have a really good chance to take the White House back in 24.
Mhm.
Does she become somebody that you appoint to a position because she shows diversity, she shows, female, and she believes in your cause?
Right.
So you really wonder at the end of the day, is she waking up this morning going, I can't believe I'm this close? It's like being in the fourth quarter of a game when you're tied and you're like, I can't believe we're still tied. We're not this good.
It's a good point. I think from a financial perspective, you're dead on, right? Like, I think if you're just looking at how much money was invested, there has to be that sentiment there. I also think so, and I was just saying this to you about the show. There is, if you go out in Pennsylvania and you go to like the outskirts of PA, there is a lot of 2015 vibes right now. People are upset. People aren't thrilled with the way things are going. And so am I shocked? Like, I don't know, like, do you know a lot about Kathy? Like, here's just like a 20-second
I know
rundown.
She was born in Mississippi or Alabama. I saw that commercial.
Okay. So here's just like a rundown of Kathy Barnett. Like, she believes the election was rigged. She was at the January 6th Capitol riots. The point that I'm trying to make is not like good or bad. The point that I'm trying to make is like, she isn't that different than like an Oz or even a Mastriano or these other candidates that are running like in the Trump-esque style to get there. So if you took away the fact that she was a black female and you just lined all the candidates up and you asked them questions, you would have a very hard time picking out which one was her. It's not like she's a different candidate. Like, other than the visual aesthetic of her, she's very similar to any candidate like Oz or any other candidate that Trump has endorsed.
Yes. Now, I would say, I don't know how, I think Oz is much more liberal than he's letting on. Like, when you hear the old quotes, he was pro-choice. He was like, he's flippy-flopped to try to get in the door, I think. The other interesting thing, say she does, because Trump has come out and said, Trump obviously endorsed Oz. Trump has come out and said she can't win in November. So the first thought is, if she does get the nomination, what does it do to the black female vote, which was just dominated by the Democrats before? But also, on the flip side, how many Republicans won't vote for her because she's black? And that's where, because your first thought is she's going to steal votes from black females from the Democratic side. But then your next thought is how many people just don't go to the polls?
See, that this is the weird, I'm trying to think of the aspect to say this. This is the weird thing about,
Politics.
I guess, like the politics, but even more so, like, I think there's people that believe, like, on the Trump agenda, there are like these hard line things that decide whether or not you are a part of the Trump agenda. And the weird part, though, is like, I don't think Trump voters care at all that she's black. Like, I don't. I think if it's January 6th and I look to the right and I look to the left of me, like, I don't think it mattered if I'm a Trump enthusiast. You
don't think? I think, in my opinion, I think racial tension in my adult life, racial tension was highest in America during Trump's 4 years in office. We'll disagree with that.
I don't. Highest, it sounds a little bit like hyperbole, but do I think that it was certainly
they were high?
Do I think it was high? Yes.
Okay. Do you think that's any coincidence that it came right after our first black president?
I don't think it's any coincidence. I mean, I think
I don't think it's coincidence either.
Okay.
I think there.
Where are you going that with her?
Because I think a lot of people came to the polls and came back to the polls because I think that's why voter turnout is higher than it used to be.
Interesting.
Because it rallied people that usually weren't overly political and didn't care. And now, are these people going to rally for her like they did for Trump?
But and she is, I say all of this knowing that she's an outlier, right? Like, I'm very aware that she is unique in her, not only her situation, but where she could possibly end up. Again, I think it comes back to the idea of, I don't think, if she were to win, I don't think a Trump voter or a Trump enthusiast would hesitate for a second to support her. You disagree?
Yes, I disagree.
Really interesting. I guess then we just have very different views of, like, I think for a lot of people that support Trump, there's the ideas of, like, draining the swamp and all the mottos and everything behind it. I think those things interiorly matter more than whether or not the candidate is black or white. I do.
To the majority, yes. Is there 5 or 10% of Trump, of not just Trump supporters, I say that, of Republicans who won't vote for a black person?
Sure.
There's a percentage. What that percentage is, I don't know.
Right. But I think I think there are people that voted today that certainly wanted a minority to win. Like, I think it sways either way. I think you're going to have 5 or 10% of people that will go and their ballot will be straight minorities. Like, I don't know. So,
but historically, that's on the Democratic side. Like,
sure.
I totally agree with you. I know from the flip side, there were people that went out and voted for Obama. There are black people that went out and voted for Obama that said they never voted before. And now they felt like it mattered and it represented them. So I get all it's just a fascinating racial dynamic, because to pretend that the racial dynamics don't affect, American life and American politics.
I guess that's the neat part of me, though, is I feel like right now it's not affecting her. Like, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Correct. Today, it doesn't seem like it is.
And so to me, that is the fast, like I guess what I'm saying is you're bringing up interesting questions about the fact that she is black. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, the fascinating part to me is that no one seems to care right now.
Correct.
That's the fascinating
thing. And I think, and maybe I'm overblowing it, and maybe I'm just looking at it because I think it's interesting. But, like, if McCormick won today and we are into November and they're having is McCormick, who's going to win,
right? Then
it's an interesting debate just on the political side.
Yeah.
Now, if you've got her instead of McCormick, and now you're looking at not just Republican versus Democrat, what does a black female Republican do to the black female vote?
No, I see.
I just think it would be interesting. But back to my first topic is it just gives you belief in the system again, that somebody who she has purely financial.
Sure.
She has no business being this close, this late, because she didn't have the money that everyone else had, and here she is in a flat-footed tie or whatever.
But I think she represents this. What I have read about her, like she organized 2 buses to go to DC, like on January 6th. I think there's a lot of voters on the GOP side that if you blindfold them, if it's like the paper test and you're just reading quotes, I think there's a lot of people that would vote for her. Like I don't think.
No,
you know what
I
I'm
know,
saying?
but
like
they're not going to be blindfolded.
And I guess
it.
this is the point of what I'm like, the irony of what the average liberal or Democrat thinks of the Trump voter is the irony is like there's certain lines that they don't care about, and one of them is like I think voting for a black female if she represents what they believe.
And I get to take it, from a different stance of what you just said is. Part of the irony is that this has happened to women in general,
right?
Where they've been at job interviews or whatever, and they're just like, if you look at my resume, if you look at my mental capacity and my skill set,
right,
I do this just as well as he does.
Right.
But there was forever, and still is, I guess, to a degree, this longstanding belief that the guy's going to do the job better than a woman. So it just there's that little twist of irony as well. That if you just look at. Do we ever get to the point where we just look at the resume and the history and the credentials as opposed to, everything else?
Sure.
And we certainly haven't got there yet, but it's fascinating. I did not think when I
gonna
watched that debate 2 weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago now.
Yeah.
When I watched that debate,
Mhm.
I did not think that anyone else had it. I mean, they were there. There were 5 people on stage.
Sure.
But it was basically those 2.
Yeah.
McCormick and Oz.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
What do those 2 do tomorrow if they wake up and lose?
I don't know. See, I go back and forth about this with political candidates. I think you've lost invested time.
Yes.
Especially if you're older or you're never going to run again. You've lost time. But like financially, how much of it was their money?
No, but
but
it's like losing a game. Like, what did you really? Does it matter? But it's like you lost. You put your heart and soul into it. You put it out for the people, and they voted for somebody else. Like
Maybe.
There has to be.
I think the older you are, the harder it is. I think the younger you are, there's this idea of like, we'll just go get them the next time, or we'll. So that's the interesting part. Is like if you're Oz, what are the odds you ever run again?
Yeah, I mean that would be a fascinating the hangover. Of the losing hangover from especially one like this where you don't know,
right?
Where all day you're biting your nails, you haven't slept, you've campaigned, you probably haven't slept in 3 days because you've been to every town hall meeting you can get to.
Sure.
And I'm sure for some of them there's a relief. For ones who it's gotten dirtier than they expected. It wasn't as close. They're asking people for money, knowing that they're probably like. I'm sure some of them when they wake up. Or even tonight, that they're kind of like relieved that it's over. They're sad, but relieved.
Right.
I can't believe, either one of McCormick or Oz is going to lose, and they both may lose. Mm-hmm. And whichever ones of those, like she has made a name for herself.
Sure.
She has done well enough that she has won, even if she didn't win. Mm-hmm. The other 2, I don't know.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Gas prices, everybody's favorite topic, right?
They're high.
They continue to soar. The average price for a gallon of gas in Pennsylvania today is $4.67. I was actually reading off some of these to you. Lycoming is in the top 10 for counties. The average price in Lycoming County is $4.64.
Give me the winner.
The winner is actually in our coverage area, Bradford County. The current price is $4.78.
Shocking.
That is the highest around the state right now for the average. I'm sure there's an individual station that's probably higher somewhere, but for the county average, Bradford, $4.78.
And for people who don't know, Bradford is Sayre.
Canton, Sayre,
Towanda,
yes.
Canton.
Yep.
Wyalusing's over there, isn't it?
Eastern Northern Tier. Yep. Wyalusing's over that way.
So
just above Sullivan. So that is $4.78. Just some other things. The American all-time record has been beat. So the U.S. set a record. The average national price was $448. It might be higher than that by now. Houston set its city record as well. And then
it's city record or it's planet record? The Planet Houston.
What is the Planet Houston?
You don't know that, right?
That shows your age. I know that.
Everyone out there that knows of the Planet Houston, now you see what I'm dealing with on an everyday basis.
What is the Planet Houston?
From the Superman movies. The guy wanted, because they kept calling like to Houston, because it's like he's Houston, like the Planet Houston. Yes, it's like the Planet Houston. You're not like there's a whole generation. That knows
just so I understand,
Houston.
Like Houston, like the space shuttle, like Houston, we have a problem.
The bad guys in Superman that were from Krypton or whatever.
Okay.
When they were here, they kept hearing these people call back to Houston.
So they called it.
So they're like, I want this Planet Houston.
Okay. That's funny. I had no idea that
was
a thing.
Classics. Okay. Lex Luthor, Gene Hackman.
Yes.
As Lex Luthor with Miss Tessmacher is just timeless.
He keeps showing up in photos because he was kind of like missing for what, not missing, but like he had retired.
Is he coming back out? He's a writer now.
So yeah, so I don't think he's like coming back out, but essentially what he's done is like every once in a while they'll take a picture and post it on social media just so people kind of like know
that he's alive.
Gene Hackman's okay and doing well. No, he's 90 something now.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. So there was like no photo of him. I want to say for like almost a decade.
We haven't done a movie in 20 years.
Yeah. So that's the point. So people were kind of like, Gene Hackman, is he even alive or whatever? So the joke, so they started posting a photo just to show like Gene Hackman's still here.
Give me your best Gene Hackman movie that's not named Hoosiers.
There is a Runaway Jury. Have you ever heard of Runaway Jury?
I saw Runaway Jury.
I really like Runaway Jury. This is so corny. One of the first sports movies I ever saw in a theater was The Replacements with Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
And Gene Hackman plays the coach as well. So those are like for me, but again, I'm so young. Like the older Gene Hackman.
Yeah, wasn't he in like the French Connection and
a whole
I never saw those.
Yeah. So I kind of missed like the original. But see, this is a funny thing. Like my Gene Hackman, I think is the Gene Hackman people like the lovable old coach.
Yes.
Like that is Gene Hackman. Like I don't know Gene Hackman any other way than just.
The one he was in the one with the mail fraud one with was it Pelican Brief, wasn't he?
With
or wait, was it Pelican Brief?
I don't know, but it was. With
or do I have the wrong one?
Was Denzel in the movie?
I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Who was the? I was thinking it was Tom Cruise. The Firm.
Okay.
Wasn't it The Firm?
Oh yes. You know what? I had never seen that until just like a month ago. I saw The Firm.
Yeah, that was good. I like that one.
I literally had never seen it.
Yeah, that's okay. So anyway, now Pelican Brief was Julia Roberts and Denzel.
Okay.
And The Firm was Gene Hackman and Tom Cruise. Okay.
The last story about gas that I wanted to mention, Sri Lanka. Have you ever been to Sri Lanka?
Of course. I was just there last weekend.
Get out of here. So here's what happened in Sri Lanka.
All right, give me this before we go any further. Where is it?
Sri Lanka?
Yes.
I would imagine Asia, but I don't know that for sure.
Oh, okay. You look. I'll look it up.
You're gonna look up where Sri Lanka is.
At first, I thought it was a long, skinny island, but now I'm thinking it's just a little square island.
Okay. Would you like to know what happened in Sri Lanka?
You already told me. Why don't you tell the people?
Okay. So Sri Lanka, actually, they had a new prime minister step out, and he had to announce that today was their last day with petrol. So essentially, he's claiming by the end of today, they will be out of gas. So one, the fascination of just a nation being told that this is their last day for energy through fuel is absolutely incredible. The other side note to this is just some like kind of like unstable government. The idea that they are currently printing money. So the authorities within the country said, we're printing money to pay for government salaries. However, the prime minister says we cannot afford to go out and buy more fuel or anything.
Okay, there it is. There's India, and Sri Lanka is the little place down here. So there we go. There's Sri Lanka. I told you it was square.
Good. That was really important. Anything on Sri Lanka?
It's just something we don't deal with here. To think like tomorrow.
I gave you the example that it would be like the governor of Delaware coming on TV, and saying today is the last day that Delaware will have gasoline, and oh by the way, we cannot afford to buy any. And oh, by the way, we are printing money to pay my salary at the same time.
And it's an island. Like if you're in Delaware, people rush across state lines.
Sure.
If you're in Sri Lanka, you swim for it. Like
Yes.
It is the last thing. Did you see a thing that they say? I read a thing. Maybe this was clickbaitish, and I didn't click it.
Okay.
They think Putin is really sick with cancer, and they
They've
were
been
talking
saying
about
there's all sorts of rumors. Like, you can't find a picture where he'll stand next to somebody. They think he might have had severe COVID, and it's really like wrecked him. There's also been reports that he's deadly afraid of contracting COVID. So there's all sorts of speculation about his health.
Speaking of COVID, I know these are of equal worldly importance.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I was reading is of the speculations into John Bon Jovi's voice is COVID, and that he hasn't, that it does, because it affects your lungs and because it affects so many things, that there have been people that it's messed up their voice. Now, he had I guess October, like last fall.
Yes.
But they're like, that may have been one thing he might not have recovered yet. Even if he has recovered, his voice might not have recovered.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Wow, it was good.
See how I tied that together? Worldwide problems in the Bon Jovi tweet.
I brought up gas prices rising. We talked about, what did we start with? Talked about Gene Hackman. We talked about,
they all tie together.
We talked about Putin. We talked about John Bon Jovi.
And now we're back to Snoop Dogg, right?
Now we're back to what are we going to talk about Snoop Dogg with?
Why? Because he's on your bottle right there for your birthday.
I
will also say this. In driving home in the car while I had Snoop Dogg on the passenger seat, I went to YouTube and I listened to Gin and Juice probably for the first time in 25 years.
Really?
If you have not seen the official music video, it is way cornier than you would have ever thought.
I mean, I think all those music videos are way cornier than I ever thought.
I was like, when it started, I was like, well, this can't be the video. And then it was.
When I was growing up, there was nothing like a Missy Elliott video was like critical, like because she was so like pushing forward, doing stuff nobody else was doing. You go back and watch a Missy Elliott video now, and it's like, what am I watching?
Well, I would be watching it for the first time because that was a little after my time. But
you never watched any Missy Elliott video?
I don't think I can name a Missy Elliott song unless you sang it to me.
You were all upset because one of her songs made it in the top 10 for the Rolling Stones list.
Well, if it was a stupid song that I never heard of.
Do you remember that? You were like all befuddled.
I remember reading the Rolling Stone top 500 list and being upset. What was Missy Elliott? What's her best song?
I don't even know if it was her best song. I think it was, can't remember the name of it now. It was number 8. And the video was more famous than the song. At least when I was growing up, the video was way more famous than the song.
Obviously, since you can't remember what the name of the song
was. The song wasn't like...
Understand.
Oh, Get Your Freak On.
Okay.
It was, and I actually...
Oh, yeah, and I listened to it. It's not that good.
No, well, I think she actually performed it at a halftime Super Bowl. She was invited by one of the...
You just have to understand, from my generation, to know that Get Your Freak On is number 8 song all time, according to Rolling Stone. And Welcome to the Jungle is like 477. Like, I can't rationalize that.
Really?
Yes.
It really bothers you that much?
It did at the time. And it hadn't bothered me since, and thank you for bringing it back
up. The state of California might end college athletics. They are introducing a bill.
No.
They are introducing a bill, Bill 1401. It is named the College Athlete Race and Gender Equity Act. But here's the essential part of it. They are going to require California schools to share 50% of their annual revenue in football, men's and women's basketball with the athletes. Essentially a new era of pay for play. The reason for football, men's and women's basketball is because they are the only 3 sports that a scholarship does not equal what the player generates for the school. So their argument is that if you are a women's volleyball player, the scholarship essentially pays for, if not more, than the actual revenue you generate. But for football, women's basketball, men's basketball, a scholarship does not equal the revenue.
Okay. What will become of this is, do schools that can't afford it or whatever, do they just say, listen, just like any other business, if your sport doesn't make us revenue, we're not having it? What is the intrinsic value of having, men's track and field or women's field hockey
Mhm.
or whatever, because it costs this much to have it.
Right.
And if it makes us nothing in return, then because right now, as we've always, and everyone knows, the big football programs and the basketball programs support these other sports who can't support themselves.
Mhm.
Now, if instead of the football program having to pay to keep, the tennis program alive, if the football program now has to pay the football players,
Right.
does Penn State tennis just go away and no one care? And then you get to the point of the next level for these sports like soccer and for volleyball and for things that could be competitive. Do we come up with these quasi-professional leagues that now every Division I school in the country doesn't have women's soccer,
Mhm.
but there are 20 regional women's soccer, professional, like college-age women's soccer team that get enough of a TV deal, that get enough of a something that they play. And they could do it like the NBA and the NHL where they split East and West. And you could have, 8 East Coast teams, 8 West Coast teams, and they all play each other. And then at the end, you have a championship.
I think this is my guess of what will happen. I think your fringe sports will become Division III athletics. So meaning like if you're a really good tennis player, there is no Division I tennis. You're going to have to go play for some Division III school. The reason that is because what kills these sports, other than the fact that they don't have a gate, right? Like they don't generate ticket sales. Some of them because people don't want to watch them. Some of them though because they just don't have like a fenced in, closed in.
It's hard. They don't have a facility.
They don't have a facility to force people to pay to see this stuff. All of that being said, the number one thing is transportation for these bigger schools. If you're a Division I tennis program, I mean, some of the traveling for some of this stuff is insane.
Who does Penn State? They could probably drive to Rutgers and they could drive to Maryland.
Mhm.
Everywhere else, Penn State, when Penn State men's and women's tennis have to fly to Indiana, they have to fly to Purdue, they have to fly to Northwestern, all these schools. So yes, and then they have to stay. Yes. And so yes, the travel and the lodging and all that stuff is what kills them.
So one of two things will happen. They'll either drop tennis altogether, or like Penn State tennis would join the PSAC. And now the Penn State tennis travels around and plays. But even like how competitive is that? How fair is that? I don't know. All I know is that the transportation is going to dictate what happens to these fringe sports.
That is a very good, because I never thought that. I think your take is exactly right, because you get schools like Lock Haven who are Division II in some sports, Division I in wrestling. Right. They're Division I in certain female sports, aren't they?
Field hockey and lacrosse, I believe.
Okay. And I know around here it's mostly been wrestling. Bloomsburg, Clarion, there were a lot of historically Division II schools, but they were Division I in wrestling because they were that good. So it could work the opposite. You could go to Pitt, but if you're running cross country, then it's Division II, and Pitt and Penn State and Temple now have all joined the PSAC.
Sure.
And you run against your regional teams.
Right.
So yes, I think you're right. I think that's exactly what ends up happening. So Penn State gets to, and there'll be some like Penn State wrestling. I would bet, because they sell out like crazy.
Well, you have to keep in mind too, this is a California bill.
It's national, right?
Well, what I mean by that is because it's a California bill, I'm not saying they don't have wrestling in California, but it's not even like, for example, the one that surprised me with California is baseball, because some of these like Southern schools, their baseball has to generate a revenue.
In the SEC, it does.
Yes. So I'm sure depending on the state and depending on how they would work the bill out would dictate some of that stuff. Because to your point, like Penn State wrestling, what Iowa State,
I was just thinking as you said that, the only conference in the country that may still have wrestling is the Big Ten. They may be the only Division I, and if you're that good, you go to the Big Ten, and everybody else is Division II.
I mean, it's very possible.
I think you're right. That was good thinking on your part. You seem so much wiser now that you're 35.
Is that what it is?
That must be it. You've turned that corner.
Just turning the age. Are you pro or against it?
Against, well, I don't know because I haven't had a lot of time to think about it. It certainly changes the landscape of sports for us. I can totally. Everyone knows that the college athlete, especially the ones in the revenue generating sports, men's basketball, men's football, as opposed to women's football, have been totally exploited, and the big time players have made so much more money for their school than they've ever got in return for the value of this scholarship. Now it's been a minor league for them to go on and be able to play, but not all these guys. There have been lots of guys who are great college athletes, like Jerry McNamara, or who's a local guy here who went to Syracuse, who did way more for Syracuse basketball than the professional basketball ever did for Jerry.
Sure.
So I think we all feel like they should be compensated better, but we also we're used to the system the way it is, and we don't want the boat rocked.
That's so. But here's what's so weird about that is, I felt the same way when they broke up the Big East, but it didn't matter that we were going to rock the boat or change things for the Big East because it was about money. So the point I'm making is
fair.
The point I'm making is it's okay to break the ice. History doesn't matter. The fans don't matter if it's about money for us. But if it's about money for the players, there's this sentiment of well, if you're gonna lose out on the spirit of college athletics if you start, and it's really, because it doesn't even look like it did before. I don't know about in the last 10 years, the conferences I grew up with don't exist. So I don't know. It's just funny to me how the dollar only seems to affect it when the NCAA doesn't make money.
Well, I mean, to your point, and I'm not sure when this happened. You might not even remember this. When I was a kid, it was the Big 8, which was Nebraska, Oklahoma, Iowa State, and all those. And then the Southwestern Conference, which was all the Texas schools, Texas and Texas A&M and Baylor and Arkansas, and they were all in. I think Arkansas was in the Southwestern Conference. I don't think they were in the Big 8, but they were. And then the Big 8 kind of disappeared, and they went to the Big 12, and some of them jumped to the Big 10, and so yes, in the past, we've not only seen Penn State join a conference, we've seen Notre Dame kind of join a conference. We've seen big schools like Syracuse and Pitt switch conferences. Right. Maryland switched to a conference. I know people in Maryland, it's just the world isn't the same since they left the ACC to go to the Big 10.
Right.
Now, I know there was a money fine, but you're right. That's very well said. To the fans, who cares? We're making money. So now it's hard for them to turn around and say, yep, I'm with you.
Yeah, that's the sneakiest thing of the name, image, and likeness, the NIL. So the part of it is everyone's oh, well, now they're getting paid. But they're getting paid and none of it's coming from the NCAA. That's the sneakiest part about that. Because for years and years and years, it was the NCAA doesn't pay their athletes that are generating all this revenue for them, right? So the NCAA goes, well, now they can be paid. Well, yeah, they can be paid by everybody but you. Mm-hmm. So you're still generating all this revenue, but you don't have to give up a dime of it. But they kind of snuck that under, the door when they push this name, image, and likeness stuff through, because everyone's just thrilled that athletes are getting paid now. Right. But to me, that's not enough. If you're the NCAA, they are generating all of this for you, and you are not giving them a dime. Still, you're not paying them.
And not to be overly bah humbuggish, but when you take a kid who does whatever, whether it's baseball, whether it's whatever at Penn State, and just say, listen, the university is not, they don't owe you $50,000 in travel to fly around. You are a huge money suck for the university. And why are you worth it? No matter what sport you are, and they can walk around, and it's unfortunate that, you're good at this sport and you're not good at this sport, and these are the revenue generating ones and whatever.
Right.
But, does Penn State owe the golfers, how much does it cost whether you're flying football, I mean, it's
Flying
cheaper
around
because you
stuff.
only have so many.
Well, this has always been like because this was one of the final papers I wrote in college, was about like why college athletes should be paid. And one of my biggest arguments to them always was like, to me, they are a school employee. And so the example I always give is, let's say you're getting, like, Jimmy's getting a scholarship to play football at Pitt, right? And then your other daughter's at Pitt. I'm assuming she's on academic scholarships.
To a degree.
To a degree,
Yes.
right? So both kids are on scholarships, right? Now, if your daughter goes and works at the library, she gets an hourly wage. But if Jimmy goes and represents the school by going to practice or going like to Penn State to play a football game, he can't be paid, even though he's representing the school on scholarship.
Right.
But your daughter can get paid to help the school or represent the school on scholarship. It makes no sense at all. There's no difference between him or her or vice versa. None. They're a school employee that's representing your school.
Well, I guess the only argument would be the person working in the library is actually doing a job.
But that's my point.
But they're like helping people there. But
you don't think they're helping the school generate revenue? That's the point I'm making. Like the scholarship athlete, the revenue that they're bringing in, they're helping the school. And not to be a jerk.
It's more intrinsic.
Some of them are helping the school more than the person putting the books away.
There's no doubt
That's
about
all
that.
I'm in. And I'm not being a jerk. I'm just saying.
I get what you're saying. No, it's a fascinating topic. And it would just, I remember a couple years ago, Stanford just came, and you think Stanford's the richest school in the world. Sure. Stanford came out and said, we're dropping 8 sports. And I remember one of them was wrestling, and a kid made nationals or whatever. So, yeah. And then what's going to happen, what would have to happen is you would need rich alumni who played. Well, that's how Penn State hockey got going, because there's some rich guy that gave him $100 million or whatever. Yep. So does your school have a rich alumni tennis player who feels like it is important to keep that program afloat instead of giving money to UNICEF or the church or wherever, all the other charitable places?
But isn't that how the world works?
Even mostly.
But isn't that how we decide which church makes it and which one doesn't?
Yep.
And I just feel like there's so many aspects of this where it's very similar to the real world, except for the part where we don't pay the athletes. Like everything else revolves around logic and consistency with how business in the world works. But then when it's time to pay the people that are actually doing things, all of a sudden, like, we just can't do it.
No, well, but I think you get to those 2 points of business and the real world, and then the academia world. Mm-hmm. And those two have often not gone hand in hand.
It's very close now. And to me, the only difference is paying the kids. That's the only difference.
Well, in college, yes.
Yeah, totally. It's sneaking into high school. Dude, I remember coming in and telling you like a year ago, kind of like, it's coming. It is unbelievable. I wish there was a way to survey how many high school athletes in Pennsylvania are getting paid for sports right now. It is. I bet you it's higher than.
Oh, no. And I get that. Yeah. I was thinking more when the differences between academia and the real world is, I was thinking about the employment and the ability to get rid of bad employees. Once you're in the teachers union, it's hard to get rid of somebody.
I get that. But see, the funny thing, like, there's kids that lose their scholarship all the time.
Correct.
I mean, like, college baseball is awful.
Correct.
I mean, the amount of kids that get yanked and lose their scholarship money, and it's unreal. It's no different. The only difference is they don't get paid with it.
Correct.
Before they
I'm with you. I'm with you.
It's crazy. Any thoughts in the show today?
I mean, I'm just happy you're here.
Don't say hockey.
What? Oh, yeah, it starts. Here, this is what we have in the next round, by the way. There's 2 Canadian teams left. They play each other.
Okay.
There's 2 Florida teams left. They play each other.
Okay.
I mean, if that's not more oxymoronic, like, we should not have 2 Canadian teams.
So you're at least going to get a Canadian team in the final.
Oh, look at that. Where'd you get that from?
I knew you were going to bring it up, so I pulled it up.
Look at that.
So you're telling me
right down there.
You know,
Calgary, Edmonton.
Yeah. So one of them's getting to the Final Four, essentially.
Yes. Okay. One and only one. Okay. I did want to say this. Yeah. I ran into, I think I told you this. I talked to my old boss, who's a Canadian.
Yeah.
He said that Canada would lose their poop. I think he said,
Yeah.
if they won the cup. I ran into someone else who's from Canada, who's a mom and daughter, and I said, we were talking about it, and I said, she said, oh my gosh, Canada would go crazy if they won the cup. I said, you know hockey? She said, yeah, my brother played like for the Ottawa 5 or the Ottawa 6. So something in the Ottawa system. And she told me she'd followed the playoffs or whatever. So I have talked to 2 actual Canadians. Now, they are both, in your argument, they're both not young.
Sure.
They're both older than me,
Yes.
I think. So you say old people see it differently than young people, which could be true because old people see the world differently than young people.
I still think the biggest difference is, like, to you, this is on par with like the Miracle on Ice. And the point I'm making is like, there's no way. It's not. Like, they're not going to react as if it's like a national pride Miracle on Ice moment.
If you would have seen,
it's not.
If you would have seen the Game 7s, and they were all 3 Canadian teams hosted a Game 7, Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary. Outside, they had the watch parties that they sold tickets to. They were talking about how they sold out, and these are thousands and thousands of thousands of people in the street.
All sorts of stuff.
You know who didn't do it? The Rangers. Like in the first round,
where would they
Florida,
go?
Carolina. Like nobody in the States had these thousands and thousands of people outside watching Game 7.
But that doesn't help the argument.
It does help the argument.
Like what you're saying is correct, but that's not helping the argument.
Whatever.
So, all right, what else? Anything else?
Canada. No, I can't really think of anything. Just get out and vote. If you haven't voted yet, go vote. And there will be. This is the most watched primary of. I can't remember anything more, unless on your local level. I know there have been school board ones that have been big and things like that.
Sure.
But as far as a statewide, this is the biggest one I remember. We could have Jason in to tell us one that, that we missed or that we forgot.
Well, there's just not a lot of, because I was listening a little bit this morning, there's just not a lot of incumbents. And so it just opens up everything.
And that's what's made this one what it is, because the incumbent said, I'm retiring and I'm not running again.
Yes.
So you have 2 sides that, usually you've got who's our best person to run against the incumbent, because it's so hard to beat the incumbent unless the incumbent's involved in a scandal.
Yeah.
But now you've got 2 sides who really feel like they can win, and they seem to be wide open. So that, historically, the stars have aligned for this, but it's crazy.
It is absolutely bonkers. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
That's it.
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We will see you tomorrow.
Yeah.